Magicians Lecture Series. I'm Joel Batman Zaritsky, and behind the scenes, running everything tonight is Brett Soul, the engineer of wonder. Now, after the lecture tonight, I want you all to stick around. We've got a schmooze and mingle. And for those around the world who don't understand what schmooze is, well, it's a Yiddish word, to chat in a friendly way. Sometimes I need subtitles. So please stick around afterwards there too. Yeah, a couple of things we have coming up December 12th, 8 p.m. Eastern. For those who don't know, the National Museum of American Jewish History is inducting into the Hall of Fame 2 SAM members. One is the 11th president of the Society of American Magicians, we all know, Harry Houdini. Second one is the most successful magician of all time, David Copperfield. So that's going to be Saturday, December 12th, 8 p.m. Eastern. And you can actually get some more information right here, www.nmajh.org. So look into that. The second one is on Sunday, December 13th. We have the International Assembly Show, free of charge, with amazing lineup. We have Tim Wise, Bill Palmer, Tony Jr., Scott Wells, Anthony Darkstone, Kevin James. It's going to be more and more, much more. It's going to be an amazing show. So this week, you're going to get some links of how to access that, and everybody's invited. It's going to be a phenomenal time. We look forward to seeing you all there. So several years ago, I was at an SAM convention in Indianapolis, and they were having a late night show with tonight's lecturer. And I got a text from one of my friends, Frank Monaco. And he said to me, he said, Joel, whatever you do, don't miss that lecture. So I went. So 24 hours later, my stomach was still hurting because I was laughing so hard. And I've been a fan ever since then. Big fan of this guy. He's been on America's Got Talent, Last Comic Standing, Conan, The Illusionist. New York Times said he's a favorite star on the comedy scene. David Casero on Facebook today said, this lecture is required viewing to call yourself a magician. So, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands up together and let's give a big round of applause for the hardest working man in comedy, Harrison Greenbaum.
Hello, everybody. Oh, it's so nice to see such a diverse group of old white people. This is amazing. Look at this. By the way, this is going to be a comedy lecture, and I prefer not to scream jokes out into an empty void. So if you guys would like to unmute or be unmuted and laugh, and you're in a quiet space where the only thing we'll hear is your hopeful laughter, no barking dogs or anything, just raise your hand, and Brett, our wonderful tech, will unmute you, and we can get a little laughter up in this room. And while we do that, a huge thanks to Dr. Joel. I very much appreciate that introduction. That is awesome. And we're inducting 2 Jews into the American Jew, because it's a deal. You get a better deal if you induct 2, and it's the American Jewish Museum. That's why they're doing it. All right. Anthony is laughing. That's great. Anthony Darkstone, hello. I think I see people getting unmuted. Kip Sherry, how you doing?
Good. Doing great.
We unmuted you, Kip, and then you just started throwing up sign language. That defeats the purpose. We got Dorothy coming in from Pennsylvania. Rod is in. This is fantastic. Grady, I think, coming all the way in from Florida. Willie, this is fantastic. Thank you guys so much.
Hello.
This is very, very exciting. I'll tell you a little bit about me. This lecture is called, by the way, You Are All Terrible. And I've been doing this lecture all around the world. And now you're terrible at virtual shows. So that's the big difference. between when I started giving this lecture and when and where we are now. But if you don't know who I am, let me give you a quick overview. Before we get there is a disclaimer. I'm going to do my best to keep this PG-13. But if I don't, you've been warned. I'm a comedian. So if you're easily offended, you probably will be. This isn't for you. All right. So let's get into it. Who am I? Where do I was on America's Got Talent. That's right. I was on America's Got Talent. I was eliminated. I was on Last Comic Standing, also eliminated. I was on Penn and Teller's Fool Us. They didn't even air my segment. That's just me getting more efficient at getting eliminated. Genie Magazine had a column there called "You Are All Terrible." It's the basis of this lecture. Also canceled. Although, in my defense, that's what happens when your humor column is edited by somebody on the spectrum. It's okay. I can make that joke. I asked Richard about it, and he still didn't get it. Thank you. Jimmy C., America's favorite softball coach. Come on, everybody. How does he not have a Food Network show where he eats horrible food? All right. He's the Guy Fieri of magic is what I'm saying, guys. Jimmy C's in the house. We love him. He's probably wearing shorts. It's a guess. We can't see his pants. All right. This is the column "You Are All Terrible," which set a record for most references the word penis in Genie. The previous record was 0. That's just a fact, everybody. I was also in The Illusionist. Yes, I was in The Illusionist. This is me in the Kazakhstan version. They called me up. They said, "Ooh, do you want to do another tour with The Illusionist?" I said, "Absolutely. I can't wait to do Broadway." And they said, Kazakhstan, which it's a 70% Muslim country. And people would think that would be a hard gig to do. Actually, very easy, because we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on the production. And we'll have a lady on stage. She'll disappear, reappear in the audience. 70% Muslim country. They're just in burqas. It's a very easy illusion. She's here. She's there. You're going to have to trust us. By the way, again, if you want to be unmuted, you're more than welcome. Raise your hand. This is where my career dies. Okay, here we go. Kazakhstan people. I'm huge in Kazakhstan. They love me there. All right. I also do a show called Who Books That with Harrison Greenbaum. It's sponsored by the IBM, but it's a shameless plug. Go to whobooksthat.com. The first episode is Matt King and Lance Burden. We've had amazing Jonathan, Shin Lim, Mark Summers, who hosts Double Dare. I was slimed at the end of that episode. Very exciting, super fun. So definitely check that out. So enough about what I've done. Oh, and I've toured this lecture since 2016. It's been 4 years. 4 years. Gary Meyer, I see in the comment, if you'd like to be unmuted, just raise your hand, and Brett will eventually unmute you, or I will if you raise your hand. Gary, where is Gary? We'll find you, Gary. Okay. This is my magic lecture audience. We got white men and women and minorities. That was 2016 though. That was 4 years ago, everybody. 2017. Okay, not a difference. 2018, very similar. 2019, no change. But this year, look at that change, everybody. Wow. We did it. Look at that. That was 2019. That's 2020. We're making progress. We're at Republican Party numbers, everybody. That's where we're at. Actually, no, if you want to make a Republican Party, we got to do that. There we go. Okay, so PSA. By the way, we're talking about the breakdown of the magic community. While I have you in front of me, I feel like I need to take advantage of the fact that I'm speaking to so many magicians at the same time. Here's a quick PSA. There'd be more women in magic if you weren't all so creepy. I'm sorry. A lot of you are creepy. You got to stop being creepy. The female magicians in our community deserve to be treated as equals because they are. Stop introducing them as female magicians. They're just magicians. You don't go to a dermatologist who's a lady and go, wow, what a great woman doctor. You go, they're a great doctor. Pretty easy. Donna Horan in the chat saying, yes, thank you, Donna. I appreciate it. I don't feel great having to mansplain this to everybody, but stop being creepy. Don't do that. That's what is this? Not the only Jabrizi joke I will be making. All right. Way, every good magic lecture starts with a quote. Did you know that? Everyone starts with an obligatory magic quote. This one is, "There's no reality, just this world of illusion that keeps on haunting me." That's Harry Keller. Magic history, very important in studying the art form of magic. Okay, that's not Harry Keller. That's Harry Keller. Okay, that's also not Harry Keller. That's Harry Keller and his dog. Also, that's not a quote from Harry Keller. It's from Chris Angel's theme song. There will be more Chris Angel jokes as well. The House of Magic he's very nice. I met Chris Angel at a convention. He was so nice to me. And yet I have not changed these jokes. I'm going to make fun of him a lot, but he's very nice. The House of Magic I'm sorry, Chris. The House of Magic has many rooms, and yet most magicians spend all their time in the closet. We all know this quote from Eugene Berger. Hashtag too soon. Hashtag sorry. Hashtag not sorry. Hashtag this is a comedy lecture, so get over yourself. All right, so let me tell you what you won't see in this lecture, so you know what you won't see, and then I'll tell you what you will see. What you won't see, any more dumb magic quotes. No more, I promise. Any more pie charts. We're done. Pie charts are the worst kind of pie after humble and cherry. Any tricks at all? You won't see any tricks at all. No, seriously, you have enough. Your wife told me to tell you. That's right. All of your wives. Every single one of your wives called me before this lecture and said, stop buying shit. You have a whole garage full, and when you die, she's going to have to pawn it off to another lady who's then going to pawn off twice as much to the next lady. It's an endless snowball of garbage that's just full of every Art of Magic stamp ever printed. All right, here we go. What you will see. I don't understand. They've sold so many of those Art of Magic stamps. Nobody's ever used them. It's the greatest. It's the greatest thing the post office has ever pulled off. Art, be more original. That's the art part of the lecture. It's two parts this lecture. The first half is art. I'm going to teach you how to be more original. Magic as art. Most people think magic is an art form. I'm going to tell you why. I'm also going to give you a solution for thinning hair. But I'm going to tell you that how you currently create magic is very different from how you should create magic. And I'm going to actually argue that you have it completely backwards. There'll be a joke involving Jabrizi. There'll be more of those jokes. And for the comedy section, how can you make your jokes funny or funnier? A boy will get injured in a hilarious fashion. How are rules that make comedy better? How are they going to make your magic better, funny or not? This is an important point. Whether your magic is funny, a comedy magic act, or whether it's unintentionally or intentionally not funny, this will help you. The rules of comedy will also help because they are the rules of good art. And so all the rules that I tell you that will make your jokes funnier will make your magic better. So even if you're not a comedy magician, this part of the lecture is still useful for you. And there'll be a joke involving Anne Frank. There just will be. You've been warned. And the secret algorithm of comedy, that's coming up. That sounds really exciting. It is. And the greatest magic review ever published. This is a Society of American Magicians special. Not only are you going to see the greatest magic review ever published, spoiler, it was in the MUM. You'll see the second greatest magic review ever published and see a very fun photo. So lots coming up. That last part has nothing to do with comedy or art. It's just fun. It's just a reward for sticking around. And if you do all this, you're going to be less terrible. That's the goal here. Let's be less terrible. Art, be more original. Okay, well, let's start with a thesis. I believe that most magic is not art. Most magic, too many magicians are performing tricks they didn't invent, with scripts they didn't write, based on performances they saw someone else do. And they still call that art somehow. I don't know how they do that. They still call that art. That's not art, right? Basically, most magicians are cover bands, right? You're not the Beatles, you're a Beatles cover band. And just because the audience doesn't know that the Beatles wrote the song doesn't make you John Lennon. So imagine if you created your own stuff. Very exciting. So how do most artists create? Let's just talk about sort of what a non-magician, just artist does to create their thing. So let's use a painter, right? Because when you go to the art museum, it literally says art in the title. They got paintings, right? There's art in the art museum. Copperfield has neither copper nor fields. but that's another discussion. So there's a painting, a classic painting. You come up with an idea. That's how you start. I'm going to paint the sky. You figure out the techniques you need to express that idea. Oh, well, if I'm going to do the sky, am I going to do it acrylic? Am I going to do it watercolor? Am I going to do it realistically? Am I going to do it based on a sky that I can see, a sky that I wish existed? And you filter that all through your own voice, your artistic voice. So that's the technique. That's the method here. Come up with the idea, learn the technique, create the art. Magicians do it backwards. By the way, this is Bob Ross. His idea, clouds, and his technique, marijuana. Thank you, Kip. You're keeping loving it, Kip. Kip, you're doing a great job. Willie, I see you laughing, and yet I can't hear it, and yet you're unmuted. I don't know what kind of wizardry is happening. Indeed, you clearly are. Evidently, only cold at the top of his head, hence the hat. Evidently, in space, no one can hear you laugh either. There we go, Willie. I appreciate it. All right. How do magicians create? Discover a cool trick or technique. That's how they start usually. Oh, this is fun. Figure out a way to present it. I don't know. I went on a field trip to China. There's a dragon on the box. Hope that it expresses some kind of authentic idea. But if it doesn't, at least it's a cool trick. That's sort of this magic store mentality that most magicians have. So let's be more specific, right? So imagine an artist says, I want to paint a nude woman. That's a classic subject stretching back to cave paintings, to ancient Greek sculpture. I want to paint a nude woman. A million artists have had this idea. Figures out the best techniques to paint the skin tones, the methods for capturing the human form. There's so much that goes into that, right? Then they filter that through their own voice, and you get a painting like this. That's Picasso's painting. I believe its title translates to 4 out of 10. So now let's look at the magician. Thank you. I like that there's a delay on laughter. It feels like there's extra laughter. All right. It's going to be weird to go back to the real world because I'm going to expect to be able to mute hecklers and I won't be able to blame jokes not working on buffering. Magicians Approach goes to the magic store. Sees the latest release is a video on painting nude women. Invents some story about how his grandfather once showed him nude women and uses the technique to illustrate it. Banned from performing at children's birthday parties ever again. Number 2, don't touch kids. Stop it. Stop it. Why? Every time there's a magician that goes to jail, that's why. I was in Monday Night Magic and I was headlining, and one of the ushers, somebody came up to me and said, one of the ushers has been arrested for a crime. And I said, how many? And where did he touch them? And they said, no, he was a bank robber. And I was relieved. That's it, the real article. Magician arrested in series of Brooklyn bank robberies. And you know the problem with this article is he's going to use it in his publicity package. It says a self-described magician and escape artist set a record for eating household light bulbs, ... New York Times. All right. What I'm trying to say is that magicians essentially have this iPhone theory of magic. They all buy the same iPhone. That's the same magic trick you all bought. And then you cover it in a different case. And somehow you think that that is original enough. If you start with somebody else's idea, you're never going to get far enough that it can become your own original idea. You have to start with your own idea first, then figure out the techniques to express that idea. So if all you do is take the existing presentation and customize it, you're not changing it enough. Here's a more extreme example. If you go out and buy the cups and balls and you do it exactly the way it came in the DVD, that's one version. Let's say now you do the cups and balls, but before you do it,
Right, your truth.
Somebody's playing music. Somebody's watching a trailer for a new magic trick. Why are they all shot in warehouses? Who is performing in these dirty, empty warehouses? There's no reason your trick needs to be shot in a way. Anyway, so,
Same thing.
here's my latest SpongeBob routine. I filmed it next to a heroin addict and a homeless guy in this dirty warehouse. It's worth $30. Anywho, if you let's say you had the cups and balls, you do it exactly the same way. That's slightly better, I guess. Slightly worse than if you just you gave a little story before you did the exact same presentation, and that's still slightly worse than if you change. Oh, now I'm doing it with little baseballs. I'm doing little baseballs, and the wand is a bat, and I sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" before I do it, and I shoot myself up with steroids. That some of those are good.
That was a good one.
If you shoot enough steroids, your testicles can eventually be used as the balls and cups and balls. It works. Maybe it's a good idea. I don't know. I'm throwing it out there. The point is that those three examples are all bad, even though we're not arguing whether one is not bad. We're only arguing which is worse. Essentially, what I'm saying is, if you start with somebody else's trick, it's you're all your warning. It's not are you stealing? It's just how much are you stealing? If you steal $1 or you steal $10 million, that you're still a thief. All right, how to create magic that is art. Figure out what you want to say and figure out a way to say that magically. So you create and you filter that through your unique voice. Here's an example. And the whole point, by the way, is that this thing, as much as I'm just a Jew yelling at you about magic right now, this should be very freeing. Remember back then when I said you don't need to buy any more magic tricks? The reason you don't is because I feel like most magicians buy magic tricks thinking that if they can just find the right magic trick, if they can just buy the right trick, that's what's keeping them from being a legend, right? That they're one magic trick purchase away from greatness. If you buy another magic trick, it will never make you better. It will just give you another magic trick to be bad at. The idea here is to take what you already have. You guys all have enough tricks. How do we make them better? How do we use what you know and create real art? This should be a freeing process. All you have to do is sit down with a blank notebook or at a blank computer screen and just come up with ideas. It should be freeing. Here's an example. By the way, I promise a solution for thinning hair. I'll give it to you right away. There it is. Hello and you're welcome. Now, here's the thing. This is a good example of coming up with an idea. So I have a joke in my act. The joke is about me being on The Price is Right. The joke goes as follows. I would love to be on The Price is Right, but my dream is to be on The Price is Right, but I can never be on The Price is Right because I'm Jewish. I'd be too frustrated. Like in my mind, the host would be like, how much is that chair? Like, I don't know, $40. He'd be like, actual retail value, $80. I'd be like, fuck you. I have a coupon. That was the dirty version. You guys got one. I warned you up top. Disclaimer. Just as I did that, a child watching, their mom entered. Totally cool. But here's the point. That joke actually comes from my life. My sister loves The Price is Right. She asked my mom when she was younger if she could be on The Price is Right. She loved Bob Barker, the original host of The Price is Right. And my mom said, when you turn 18, because you have to be 18 to be on The Price is Right. When you turn 18, we will fly you out to Los Angeles for your 18th birthday. We will all get to be on The Price is Right. I'll send away for tickets. Now, my mom was banking on the fact that by the time my sister turned 18, Bob Barker would be dead. Fortunately for us, but fortunately for him, he was very much alive and still working when my sister turned 18. So we flew out to Los Angeles. We were in the audience of The Price is Right. It was very exciting for my sister. That was the same trip where I got to go to the Magic Castle for the first time. That place blew me away. I said, one day I want to perform there. So it was a very meaningful trip. And as we were talking about The Price is Right and getting excited to be on The Price is Right, I made a joke about my very Jewy grandmother and said, I'm glad she's not with us because she would have coupons for every item. And I realized that's a funny idea, morphed it around, and eventually became the joke that I just told you. So now I have a joke based on who I am and what I really feel and love. And I realized, ooh, it would be so fun in my magic act if I could play a game of Price is Right with the audience. And that's at that point, once I realized I'm going to play this game with the audience and I want to be able to beat them at The Price is Right using some kind of magic. That's when I started thinking about magic. It's not the normal magic way where you buy a board and then you go, hey, what kind of theme can I give this? I came up with The Price is Right first Then I went on a journey. I said, well, I guess it's got to be a prediction effect, and it's a prediction effect. So that, you know, it's probably going to be, eventually I land on Mental Epic. I buy every version of Mental Epic. And this version is not necessarily the cleanest version. There's another version that requires a little bit less dirty work, essentially. But the predictions have to be on the bottom. And again, I'm starting with my idea first. So ideally for me, I write the price first on top, then their price on the bottom. I go from left to right. That's how it would be on the game. It also makes sense, just American audience left to right. So I chose the board not necessarily based on the best method, even though it's a good method, but I did it based on the idea. So that is the Price is Right trick. If ideas come before techniques, why come to lectures and learn all of these techniques? Shut up, Jew. That's not very nice in the PowerPoint. How'd you know I was a Jew? No, that's not, because it's an event with magicians, so the odds are very high. That is true. There we go. So you're building up the knowledge and skill of your craft so that when you come up with your dream effects, you have the ability to make them a reality. So it is a good idea to learn as much as possible, to come to all of these SAM virtual lectures and learn as much as possible. But the idea is not to then take those techniques and figure out how you're going to present them. But when you come up with an idea, you now have a resource and the knowledge that it takes to make it real. So if you say, you know what, I want to open my show by flying out naked over the audience. I will produce a sausage and I will toss it upon the audience below. Is that a good idea? No, it's probably a crime. Nobody wants to see your kielbasa or your kielbasa. The point, though, is if that is your idea and you find a place where it's legal to perform it, you will be able to. There is a method for it. I'm confident that there is either within you, within your library, or within your group of friends and colleagues at the SAM, somebody who knows how to make that trick a reality. So, what does it mean to have a unique voice? I mentioned that back there, right? Remember I said you have to filter that through your own voice? You got to figure out what your persona is, what your character is. And the way you do that is you first determine whether it's a magnified version of you or a completely different invention. Most people are magnified versions of themselves. I'm a magnified version of myself. There are people who invent a character. Sylvester the Jester is not an actual cartoon character. He's a sad Italian. I don't know if he's sad, but he's definitely Italian. So if you're going to create a character, by the way, it's got to be fully dimensional. You got to know that character as well as you know yourself. A little trick is to come up with a secret, because real people have secrets, right? Somebody I know wanted to do a character based on an old mining prospector. Oh, I'm the old mining prospector doing magic. And that can be funny. But what was funnier is when we gave him a secret, and the secret was that old mining prospect had recently murdered his wife. Nobody knows yet. And he's having a lot of difficulty keeping that a secret. Now, all of a sudden, this character has dimensionality. There's this game to play. It's a much more exciting living thing. So if he's like, ooh, I remember when I told my wife, who's definitely alive and not dead yet, let me take out this handkerchief. Oh, that's just catsup. It's so much more to play because this character has secrets now. The magnified version of you, if you're Clark Kent, what is your Superman? Take the aspects of you that are really great or really terrible and blow them up. If you're kind of confident in real life, be super confident on stage. It's important, though, that you are aware both of who you think you are, that's pretty good, but who the audience thinks you are. So your character is going to be in the intersection of your perception of who you are and the audience's perception of who you are. You have to know that, right? Like if you want to act like you're really sexy, but you know the audience doesn't think you are sexy, you can play that to great comic effect. If you are like most magicians over 50 and just continue acting sexy, even though you don't fit into the costume or the box, that's a problem. So there's your characters at the intersection between your perception and the audience's perception. How do you know you have a strong character? Oh, by the way, magician who does magic tricks, not a character. One of my biggest pet peeves is seeing a magician, and at the end of their show, I know nothing about them. All I know is that they do magic. I don't know if they have a family. I don't know where they live. I only maybe know very superficial things, but I don't really know who they are. Mike Birbiglia, the comedian, gave me one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. It was that comedy should feel like you're ripping off scabs. That's how personal your art should be. Do the kind of magic or comedy you'd be embarrassed for your parents to see. Reveal stuff to your audience that you haven't even revealed to your family. That's how personal art should be. The test of a strong character. Can somebody do an impression of you? If somebody can do an impression of you, and without telling the person who you're doing an impression of, guess who you're doing an impression of, you might have a very strong character. So for example, if I do a Southern drawl and I do this accent in the early afternoon, Matt King. Right? Talking about Kentucky, Matt King, easy. If I want to do an impression of David Blaine, I just talk slower and slower until I fly away holding balloons. No reason. If I'm I do it. David Blaine, I just wait 2 years before I do it. By the way, while we're talking about unique voices, let's make this even more important point. Art is about expressing your point of view, right? Your POV, which is your opinion. And if it's a strong enough opinion, people will disagree with it. That's okay. Too many magicians are vanilla pudding. They just want everybody. They don't want anybody to hate them, and so they create a situation where nobody can love them. Everybody just kind of likes them, right? That's vanilla pudding. People aren't against vanilla pudding, but nobody loves vanilla pudding, right? Nobody's like, oh man, cannot wait to get home and have some of that vanilla pudding. That's why they serve it at hospitals, because they serve it and you kind of go, all right, I'll eat the pudding. Is that who you want to be as a magician? All right, I'll watch it, but only if I'm at a hospital. Eat sushi. A few people hate sushi. One of my best friends hates sushi, finds the idea of raw fish revolting. If you bring up sushi, he is out of that conversation, out of there. But the people who love sushi loves sushi, right? It makes your day. If I said, hey, let me take you out to sushi, they're like, oh my God, I love sushi. People will seek the best sushi places, right? You can Google, where's the best place to get sushi in any city? There's a list. You can't Google the best place to find vanilla pudding. They'll say, I don't know, a school. Eat sushi. That graphic took 30 minutes of my life. Let's watch it again. All right. By the way, while we're comparing food and magicians, let's just go for it, right? This is Franz Harari. We're going to compare him to, oops, let's make sure I'm in my slides. There we go. We're going to compare him to bats. How is Franz Harari like bats? Very popular in China, much to the confusion and distress of the rest of the world. Solid joke. How is Jabrizi like rainbow bagels? Ooh, how is Jabrizi like rainbow bagels? Popular on the internet, but absolutely terrible in real life. Jabrizi like prison food. I can tell you they have a lot in common. It's only enjoyed by bad people with no taste. Some of you are like, is he being too mean to Jabrizi? No, here's a video of Jabrizi.
What are you thinking about? 7 spades.
If you're gonna hire people to fake react to your magic, make sure they're on the side of the magic trick where they could see what's happening. So you'll notice that the entire audience is looking at the back of a WoW gimmick, which is just an empty piece of black plastic, not unlike the magician performing.
Oh!
That's fired. Okay. Why create art? Why create art? Here's a quote from Ken Weber. He came out with Maximum Entertainment, great book. He came out with a sequel, by the way, Maximum Entertainment 2.0, Return of the Jew. And I shouldn't say this, but he's actually coming out with a third version called How Can You Have More Entertainment Than the Maximum? That's literally the most possible already. Quote quote is, "The successful performers of my acquaintance consciously and conscientiously take the hard way, for that will be what separates them from the herd." Here's another quote from Rudy Covey. "There are two roads. One is a fairly easy one, requiring no work or creativity, and the other, and always leads to a pitiful situation. The other road requires dedication, hard work, time, and actually having to think for yourself. And it's your choice." That's from Rudy Covey. It's a quote he made in Genie magazine back in the 90s. And here's another quote: "Creating original material is hard, but it's what makes every other goal, being booked, being liked, being known, achievable." And that is me. 2 seconds ago, I just said it. I'm not going to BS you and tell you that this method that I'm telling you is easy. It's very hard to create original magic. There's nothing scarier than staring down a blank page and having to invent a magic trick that did not previously exist. However, if your goal is to create art and your goal is to be an artist, it's the only way. And once you've done that, once you've accomplished this kind of a process and continue to use it, it will make all the other things that you dream about, being booked, being liked, being well known, all of those things. That's how you achieve it. All the people who are your heroes in magic are your heroes because they chose the difficult path of creating original art. That is the art part of the lecture. And now we get to be funny. Before, as a little palate cleanser, while we do the comedy Be Funnier, and Dorothy takes a selfie of herself. Or is it a selfie of me? Oh no, you're taking screenshots of the lecture. I like to imagine that you're just taking photos of yourself enjoying my lecture, but that's okay too. No, it's on the slides. We love Dorothy. Okay. Oh, it just says Shiksa with a Yiddish. Nice. I do love Yiddish is the best. Comedy, Be Funnier. So I'm going to show you the funniest video. This is just a treat. Here you go. The funniest video I think I've ever found on the internet. Okay, now let's imagine that the boy represents us, and that thing that's swinging through the air is 2020. And now let's imagine that the boy is us, the stick is 2020, and the girl is the current administration. Not a problem. Okay. This thing, by the way, gets funnier the more you watch it. It's unbelievable. Here's a fun joke. I don't tell street jokes that often, but here's one that you can take with you. Not that you should be taking any jokes, but street jokes are, anyway. What is Whitney Houston's favorite kind of coordination? Hand dive. Okay.
Oh. Dad joke. Dad joke.
It is a dad joke. It's a joke that matches my current bod. Not that much exercise here in the pandemic. Joke structure. How do you write a joke? A lot of magicians know very technical details about every part of their magic, right? They know every slight name and variation, and Marlowe did it, and Vernon had something to say about it. And yet they don't know the basic structures of a joke. Well, jokes are pretty simple. They are tension and release. There's the premise, which creates tension, and then the punchline, which releases that tension. And the tags are ways to squeeze out. They're additional punchlines that squeeze out extra laughs from a premise. Magic is exactly the same thing. So there is magic side by side. There's the buildup, the premise, right? Where you go, I'm going to have you select a card. I don't get to see it. You're going to shuffle it in. How is it possible for me to know where or what that card is? That's tension, right? And then all of a sudden I find that card, even though it's impossible. That's a release, a relief. And there's an additional revelation. It turns out the rest of the cards are blank. So magic is the exact same format. Laughs per minute is a very interesting measurement of the amount of comedy in something. It's where you just take how many laughs you get in a certain act, and you divide it by the amount of time the act takes. So here is a breakdown of somebody's act, and they're only going to use punchlines, no tags. This really is going to be sort of a mathematical demonstration of why tags are so important. So imagine I set up a joke, I hit a punchline, I set up a joke, I hit a punchline. In this example, I'm using round numbers. It takes 30 seconds to set up a joke. The punchline takes about 10 seconds. That's a laugh every 40 seconds, which comes out to be about 1.5 laughs per minute. Now imagine that I do tags. So after my punchline, I try to add additional laugh lines. So I do my setup, I do a punchline, but then I go tag, tag. And then I continue, setup, punchline, tag, tag. Now if I look at that same amount of time, I'm getting 3 punchlines in the course of a minute, which is 3 LPM. So I'm doubling the amount of laughter that I am getting by using these tags. It's really, really important. So when you're coming up with jokes, don't stop at the punchline. Keep thinking, how can I squeeze extra laughs out of that joke? Here's an example of a joke with some tags.
I'm a New Yorker. New York. Nice. I actually got into an argument on the subway, and the guy quoted the Bible at me. That is not fair. Like, you get to quote from your favorite book. I should be able to quote from my favorite book, right? He was like, men do not live on bread alone, Matthew 4:4. It's like, everybody's a little bit magic, Harry Potter, chapter 7.
That's the punchline, but it keeps going.
Fight, right? One of those books is a classic about a man who has sacrificed himself for the good of the world, and the other is the Bible. Do you know what I'm saying, people?
So there's a punchline with 1 tag. Actually, the joke has more tags, but they edited it out. Hashtag humble brag, hashtag just brag, hashtag eliminated, hashtag so was Roseanne. So here's the joke in action. It's a real kick in the pants when the person who loved you most on the show then goes on to say horrible things. And yeah. It's hard to go to an agent and go, yes, she did say horrible things, but when she said she liked me, she was being correct. So, so we have a joke in action. This is the joke written out. You saw the setup, the punchline. The additional punchline is, I'm glad you laughed at that joke because I did the joke the other night and the woman was like, the Bible is true. And I was like, really? It doesn't have a bibliography. Going because I use that premise to set up a whole section of jokes. Did you guys see on the news this guy was holding the Bible? He got hit by lightning. He was pretty upset. I was like, dude, you should be excited. Like, you now have an autographed copy. That joke doesn't get attached. It goes short to set up and it completes itself. But in general, set up, punchline, tag, tag. So this is the very exciting part right here. The 3 C's of comedy: contrast, compression, and clarity. If you have these in your head, if you go away from this lecture with these 3 C's memorized, and it's really easy to remember that they start with C because so does comedy. Also chlamydia, which is a funny word. These are the questions that you have to ask yourself if a joke is not working. These will give you the tools to take something that's not funny and make it funny, or something that's funny and make it funnier. So you'll ask yourself, is there enough contrast? Is there enough compression? Is there enough clarity? Where did I get that chlamydia? You use the C's. Anybody not laughing has chlamydia. We're recording this Zoom. No, okay. Contrast, compression, and clarity. Those are the 3 C's, baby. Gives you the questions you can ask yourself to make a joke funnier. So let's go through each one. Contrast. This is a super important one. There are always going to be 2 forces in conflict in every joke. If you can find them, it should be very obvious. You can enhance the contrast between those 2 forces in order to make a funnier joke. One of the things that's interesting is, and by the way, contrast of expectations is a version of contrast that is also known as, nope, that's not it. Sorry. Contrast of expectations is also known as, no, okay. This is very awkward because there was a series of penises and now there's just a photo of a huge dick.
Oh.
Ooh, man.
I apologize up front for those ones. All right. Here's the thing, though. The distance between forces is very important. When we are trying to say that 2 things are not comparable to each other, we say it's like apples and oranges. That is a terrible example. Apples and oranges are very easy to compare. They're both fruits. Apples and oranges have more in common than they have different. That's a bad example. You also don't want two things that are so far apart that they are impossible to compare, like apples and the Heisenberg uncertainty principle.
What?
The key is finding two things that are far enough apart that they're interesting, but close enough together that you can connect them. For example, apples and porn. Because if you like the granny kind the most, you're a weirdo. Now, that's a really, as much as that's a fun joke just to say, and the other way to phrase it is nobody likes the granny kind. That joke only works because those things are connectable, right? The reason it's funny, the reason there's like a mind explosion when you hear that punchline and that mind explosion comes out of your mouth as laughter is because two things that sound like they might be too far apart come crashing into each other. That explosion, that interesting collision is where the laughter actually is being derived. So we want it to be close, but not so close, far, but not so far. Another example would be a murder mystery, right? If the clues are really easy and you solve it right away, not fun. If the clues aren't there at all and it turns out the murderer was never even on screen, that's also a frustrating, terrible mystery. You want something that is not obvious going forwards, but in retrospect, oh my God, I should have known the whole time. That's what we're looking for with contrast. Now here's me using the simile form of contrast, A is like B, which is one of the simplest but most powerful forms of contrast in comedy. So here we go, me doing a simile joke.
I get it. People think I'm gay because every single thing about me. Isn't it when you're not gay, but people think you're gay? People will argue with you about you, right? Like, you know what I'm talking about. Like, same boat, right? They don't do that with their other preferences. I've never been in a deli. They're just like, hey, do you want cucumber? I'm like, nah. They're like, you want cucumber. You look and sound like you love cucumber. No, we're going to put it on your sandwich. You're lying to yourself. All right, that's it for me. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.
I was also eliminated from that in the second round. I'm very good at getting eliminated in the second round of things. Just enough to get your hopes up and make it more depressing than if you hadn't even been on the show. All right. I'm not resentful. It's totally reasonable that a German model would be able to tell what comedy is good. They've never had issues with Jews before. Did I say that on the show? I did. Did they say, were you surprised that Heidi didn't like you? Yes. Did I respond, we have a history of not getting along? Yes. Did they edit that out? Absolutely. Remember the murder mystery analogy, A is like B. We're going to write a joke, everybody. This is the interactive part. So either you're going to end up unmuting and sharing it, or you're going to put it in the chat. Don't put it in the chat right now because I want people to be able to think of their own joke. I'll tell you when you can start doing that. But you're going to take 30 seconds to come up with a joke. Card tricks are like farts. I'm going to give you a hint before we initiate this writing thing. It's a A is like B joke, classic formula. What you should do is think about card tricks or farts. Think about the idea. What is your take? What do you like or dislike about card tricks, or what do you like or dislike about farts? And then figure out how you can work in the other one. That's the key to figuring out this structure. So here we go. Card tricks are like farts. I'm going to play a song that I actually sang on. This is my own take on a classic song. That song is about 30 seconds long. That's how long you'll have to write your own punchline. Here we go.
Write a joke about card tricks and farts. Write a joke about card tricks and farts. Write a joke about card tricks and farts. Why are you listening to this song instead of writing about the card tricks and the farts? Write a joke, time's almost up. Yes, it is.
All right, we did it, everybody. I'm seeing a ton go. The chat is already blowing up, which is great. Which is the thing I want to see neither from card tricks or farts. 3 in a row and I leave the room. That's a fantastic one. Card tricks are like farts. 3 in a row and I leave the room. The dog probably didn't do it. That's pretty good. They'll clear a large room. Fantastic. Jokes are like farts. The longest ones are the worst. Fantastic. No one thinks their own stink. They both end up with you shuffling. Fantastic. Let's see. They are surprising, but sometimes stink. They're both stanky. I like that. I hope that was intentional because stanky is funnier than stinky. Penn and Teller hate them. I don't know. I think they actually like farts sometimes. That's, by the way, the other version, the other way to do that. That's another classic joke structure. Anybody who's unmuted or would like to be unmuted and actually say their joke out loud, just raise your hand. Kip, what is your joke? Card tricks are like farts.
Everyone has one. They all stink.
Fantastic. Love it. You know what? You have the energy and look like somebody who would be a very intense assistant coach on a high school football team.
Go Broncos.
I just picture you yelling, come on, defense, hustle. I feel like you yell hustle a lot. All right. Going out on a limb. Anybody else like to share their joke? There are no bad answers. Anybody, if you want to raise your hand, I'll call on you. Martin Steinberg, absolutely. Let's see. I have to request that you unmute. I just sent you that, and then you have to click unmute.
Okay. I wrote down one can pick a card, but not a fart.
One can pick a card and not a fart. Remember how I said there are no bad jokes? I lied. I'm kidding, Martin. I love you, Martin.
Are you saying that stinks?
There you go. I'm gonna mute you. Okay. You can be unmuted if you like. All right. Anybody else? Final chance. Anybody else want to share?
Invisible ones are the worst.
Invisible ones are the worst. That's fantastic. My uncle farts sound like a riffle shuffle. That's a different take, but I like it. By the way, this is kind of exciting. Raise your hand if that was the first time you wrote an original joke. Raise your hand. If you actually wrote out a joke for the first time. Grayson's raising their hand. Bill is raising the hand. Who else? Jim just raised his hand. A bunch of people are raising their hand. That's really nice. It's very easy to write a joke. It's not easy necessarily to write a good joke, but it's very easy to write a joke. And I hope even in just this 30 seconds that you guys realize that you all have within your own power to write your own jokes. Here is a couple of punchlines. I've done this exercise for years. Here are some of my favorite punchlines for card tricks are like farts. Some of them have already been hit upon. You did great. We have, well, there's the song again, just in case. One is fine, but by 2 or 3, you've ruined the party. Card tricks are like farts. Silent ones are the worst. Card tricks are like farts. They're often credited to the wrong people. Card tricks are like farts. Do a big one on the first date and you're guaranteed not to get a second. The longer they last, the more uncomfortable everybody gets. Card tricks are like farts. Force it too hard and you'll probably embarrass yourself. Card tricks are like farts. Too hard and it's shit. Card tricks are like farts. One mistake and you'll have a horrible mess on your hands. That's my favorite one. So obviously there's a lot of different punchlines that you can come up with, and there are ways to combine multiple punchlines into a setup, a punchline, and then additional tags. But my method for coming up with a joke is often generating a list like that, and only 1 or 2 of those would end up in my act surviving on stage, but not until I've tried all of those on stage and seen what is the funniest. All right, so that is contrast. Ooh, let's talk about, let's give you a reward for getting through the first third of the 3 C's. These are Venn diagrams. It's an A is like B. The way I write them is I come up with one of the things, then I come up with my take, and then come up with a clever second thing to connect them to. So this is the same process we just used for card tricks are like farts. Here we go. Some magic trick Venn diagrams. Here it is. Magic competitions are like not dying in large numbers from the coronavirus. South Koreans are just better at it. Hereafter, we're doing it. These are just jokes. All right. Republican governors and Jeff McBride's lawyer, what do they have in common? Spends a lot of time trying to reduce the number of people in masks. Why you're not a juggler? America's national response to COVID-19. What could that have in common? A depressing lack of coordination. Still jokes. Photos of you performing at an unsafe maskless party on Instagram. We've all seen it recently. What does posting photos of you performing at an unsafe maskless party on Instagram have in common with my girlfriend's response when I asked her to make a sex tape? Why would you want evidence of your selfish disregard for others? Okay, fine. Let's try a different punchline. Posting photos of you performing at an unsafe maskless party on Instagram. My girlfriend's response when I asked her to make a late night tape. Why would you want a record of you giving a disease to someone else? Jokes, hashtag. All right. Shidlam's Act. National Museum of African American History and Culture relies extensively on Black art. Linking rings and parasols. What do they have to do with Anne Frank? I told you there was going to be an Anne Frank joke. What do linking rings have to do with Anne Frank? Better off left in the attic.
Okay.
Joke. Chris Angel, talent. What do they have in common?
Nothing.
Contrast. While we're talking about contrast, let's talk about the third level. Very quickly, there are different levels by which you can surprise your audience, right? Contrast of expectations is surprise. It's a form of contrast. A first level joke is something everyone can predict. A second level joke is something that comedians in the back of the room can see coming, but maybe your average audience member doesn't. And a third level joke is one that even the comedians don't see coming. This is very applicable to magic, right? How often have we seen a magic trick start and us as the magicians in the back of the room are like, I know where this is going, and we are right. Have you all seen this? That is a second level magic trick. Even though the audience might not know it's going there, all the magicians basically know it's going there. Once in a while, we get to see third level magic where even we are taken off guard. We're like, wait, what? That's a surprise. We should aim to always be at the third level. All of our jokes, our comparisons, our magic tricks should be at the third level. Your ideas in all of your art should be third level. That's a quick sidebar. Okay, compression. The most information in the smallest amount of space. That was compression. We did it. So compressed. I wish that would have been good. It would have been a good example, but actually I'll give you a little bit more about compression. You keep cutting until it breaks and then you go back one step. So what that means is I will take a joke and I will keep cutting it as much as I can. I'll cut out a word, a sentence, a phrase until the joke stops getting a laugh. Then I know that I've cut too much. I go one step back. Now I have the shortest joke possible that still gets a laugh. By the way, editing is when we learned editing wrong when we were in school. It's not about looking for what's not necessary and removing it. It's about looking for what's necessary and removing everything else. A common example, I sometimes if I have more time and I want to leave room for questions, but the common example I would do is the Nora Ephron exercise, where she would tell you that you are the editor of the high school newspaper, give you a long speech about how all the teachers and superintendent are going to be at a conference on Thursday. Your job is to come up with the shortest summary of that. The shortest summary is only 3 words, no school Thursday. Those words aren't in the article, but that's the important message. So editing is not necessarily about just removing things. It's about figuring out what's necessary that might not even be in the script at that point, and then removing everything else. So think about your magic. Is everything that you do, your words, your gestures, your moves, your choreography, does it all serve the final revelation, the moment of astonishment in your trick? If it doesn't, cut it. You figure out what the magic is, you remove everything that's not in service of it.
I
All
was
right.
vegan for a while. You guys know vegan, right? When you give up meat and dairy and friendship, those are the three things.
The rule of three. Everybody says magic is the magic number is 3 for comedy. Does anybody know the least funny number in comedy? It's 12. 12 Years a Slave, not a comedy. 12 people can convict you of murder, not funny. Cheaper by the Dozen, 1 and 2. Couldn't even be saved by Steve Martin. 12, that's when you crap out in craps. It's just not a good number. 3 though, hilarious. Why is 3 hilarious? Because it combines compression and contrast. 3 is the smallest number, that's compression, that is required to set up a pattern and then to break that pattern. If I say red, blue, meaningless. But if I say red, red, blue, I've set up a pattern and I've broken it. Another example, if I go this one and then this one, you wonder to yourself, is this a series of Jews, a series of millionaires, a series of people named David, a series of magicians? You don't know what the pattern is. But if I go like this, and then like this, it's good magician, Chris Angel. Right? There's a huge pussy in that photo and also a cat. Rule of 3. So that is why the rule of 3 exists. But the advanced rule of 3, because we're always about surprise, right? We want to surprise our audience. Sometimes, and this is only sometimes, we want to put our disrupting third beat actually on the fourth beat. We want to surprise our audience. So sometimes you can break the rule of 3 once you've established it in order to keep an audience on its toes. I call that the advanced rule of 3 because I want you to know that you don't have to, you're not restricted by the rule of 3. It doesn't always have to be on the third beat, although now you know why it's on the third beat. Okay. So let's do our final thing, clarity. This is exciting, clarity, because it's just about being as clear as you can. Are you getting your idea across as you intend them? How can you make sure you have maximum clarity? Make things simpler. Sometimes my grandma was an English teacher, so I really like to have proper grammar when I speak. But when I'm on stage, sometimes I purposely choose the grammatically incorrect version of a sentence because it's easier. It's how people talk. Simpler is better. You can make sure that your message is getting across because it's simple. Sometimes the simpler word is better than the more complex word. Eliminate confusion. Make sure you're not confusing your audience. It doesn't get simpler than that. Make sure the audience is on track the whole time. And be precise. Make sure what you're trying to say is what they are receiving. If you're doing a joke where you're being sarcastic, but the audience doesn't know you're being sarcastic, so think you're actually saying what you mean to say, that is a problem with clarity. That is all clarity is. Be clear at every stage as to what you're doing. Simplify the process of your trick. That's clarity and compression. Remove repetitious phases. That's clarity, compression, and contrast. Because if you're going to keep linking the rings and unlinking them, it starts to lose contrast. It's the same thing over and over. It starts to ruin compression because it's taking longer than it should. And it reduces the clarity of what you're trying to do. The first time you link it, it's very clear, magic. The fourth time you do it, weird. So those are your 3 things: contrast, compression, and clarity. So simple. Grayson Smith is giving me the applause. That's fantastic. We are almost in the home stretch. I promise everybody. I don't want to get in between a magician and his dinner, although I will say less tarbell, more barbell. Here we go. It's an exercise. It's an exercise joke, everybody. All right. The difference between a bad joke and a good joke. If you want to boil down all of the lessons that I just taught you in both art and comedy and apply it to jokes and magic, here it is. If you want to distinguish between good jokes and bad jokes, a joke that works and a joke that doesn't work, that's technique. That's what we just taught you. If you want to distinguish between what makes a joke good and great, and by that I mean a joke that's funny and a joke that's funny and memorable, that's going to be the point. So the difference between a bad joke and a good joke is the twist. Every joke has a surprise. Every joke is like an M. Night Shyamalan movie. Oh my God, he's been dead the whole time. Or an M. Night Shyamalan career. Oh, he actually was a bad director. He just got one good movie in him. The difference between a good joke and a great joke is the point. And this is a philosophical question. The difference between a good joke and a great joke, does the joke make the amount of time it takes to tell it on behalf of the comedian and the amount of time it takes an audience to listen to it, is it worth all of that investment in time and energy? And there are three ways to look at the point of a joke. Is it true? Does it actually reflect reality? Is it new? Is it something they've never heard before? Is it you? Is it something only you could be delivering? If you ask yourself those three questions when you're creating magic or comedy, you can determine pretty quickly whether your joke has a point. Is it true? Is it new? Is it you? And it rhymes, so it must be true. So putting this all into practice, home stretch, secret algorithm of comedy, you perform a joke, you take in the data that your audience gives you. Are they laughing? Are they enjoying themselves? Then you adjust that material based on that data and you perform the joke again. And if you can get through that wheel over and over and over again, it's like polishing a stone, you will eventually end up with material that is bulletproof. Magicians often fail this in multiple different ways. For example, they don't get on stage enough. If you want to be a famous magician on stage, then you need to get on stage. If all you do is birthday parties, you'll be very good at birthday parties. You need to get on the stages that you want to be on as much as possible. Also, if you're not experimenting enough, that's not using your stage time properly. Every lecture I do, and I've been doing this lecture now for almost 5 years. I've done it more times than I could count. Every time I do this lecture, I change something. I added a slide about the twist and the point. That was new. It's something I've spoken about before, but I've never had it in the lecture. So I added that because every time I do a lecture, I want it to get better. And if I think that it worked when I did it in the lecture, I keep it. If I don't think it worked, I get rid of it. But in this way, every time I do the lecture is a chance for that lecture to get better. Break stuff. When you're taking that data, when you're listening to the laughs, make sure you're hearing laughs that are there. That's called laugh years. How many times have you seen a magician do terrible and is like, man, I killed it? That's not how it works. The point is, I can tell the difference between a bad magician and a good magician right away. A bad magician bombs and sees one person enjoying it and goes, look at that one guy. That's what bad magicians do. A good magician or a good comedian kills, but sees one person not entirely enjoying it and can only think about that person. That's how I know he's probably a good magician and depressed. Also, record your sets. Record your sets. This way you can hear the data after you perform so you can focus on it. The problems with adjusting the joke, thinking you know better than the audience and not taking in their data, and also not being willing to kill jokes. If a joke works for a while, but then it stops working, maybe it's because the joke has stopped working. You're going to need to adjust it, even though it killed for a while. So that's the secret algorithm. You just got to go through it over and over and over and over again. And I promise it will make you a better performer. Write what you want. That's originality. And keep what they want. That's the funny. So there's your art and your comedy, secret algorithm. So in review, but first, a note on reviewing. This has nothing to do with my lecture. This is just a reward for making it to the end, everybody. The best review I ever read was in the MUM. You guys all subscribe to it because you're all members of the SAM. And if you are looking for something to read while you take a shit, look no further than the MUM. It's a great poop mag. It's fantastic. It's very digestible while you're dealing with your digestion. It's the perfect length between flushes. I cannot endorse the MUM any better than that. Somebody's holding up a picture of Jeff McBride on the cover of MUM, also his poop face. It's perfect. Thank you, Brett. And MUM, the magazine that I cherish and read cover to cover every month, and I really do. I really do. There is a review of, some of the reviews are just unbelievable. And so I'd like to share them with you because you probably have a stack of these at home. Check out the December 2018 issue, my favorite issue. It should be a collector's item because it features the best magic review in magic review history. Payne, the magician Payne, who does a tireless job every month, tireless. He wrote this review of a marked deck of cards. When his deck, the Boris Wild marked deck, was first released back in 2005, I had a great deal of difficulty reading it efficiently, which is a bad sign in a review about a marked deck of cards. That doesn't bode well for this review. But then the next sentence was this. Since that time, however, I've had cataract surgery and my lenses have severely lessened my astigmatism. And now I find the cards easy to read. A blind man reviewed a marked deck of cards and then had this to say, I am not a big card trick guy. If you are a blind man who hates card tricks, don't review marked decks of cards. You might ask, why do you bring this up in the lecture? Well, I did this lecture at Magic Live. And what happens after this part of the lecture is questions. A hand was raised. I said, yes, you, sir. You look like Summer Santa. You answer. And the man said, what's your second favorite review? Because I am Pain. That's right. Pain was at my lecture. He said, what's my second favorite review? And I said, I'm glad you asked. It's the other review you wrote in that issue. When you reviewed an app for your phone, you said you dislike cell phone tricks. And also, you have a flip phone. You reviewed a cell phone trick, even though you don't really have a smartphone. And I got to tell you, there's Pain in me, and there's his review behind us. And I got to say, lovely man, a fantastic person. And I love him. We're now friends. And this story has a happy ending. And if he ever reviewed this lecture, man, we would come full circle. So let's see if that happens. Maybe he's at this lecture right now. Pain, are you here? Is Pain real? Can you all see him in the photo? Or is he just my conscience?
He's real.
Okay,
I don't see him in the room.
it's going to be like this lecture is like Memento. Okay, it's like Fight Club. You realize Tyler Durden is just me the whole time. All right, so in review, you are all, and by the way, if you guys want me to talk about virtual shows, I can, but I'll blow through this part so that we can go to the question and answers. If that is a question, I will get to it. I even have a nice graphic with the coronavirus, so we'll get to that. There's a poop emoji involved. We'll get to that if you guys want to, but I want to make sure we get to the question. So in review, you are all terrible, but you will get better if your goal is to create art. And you're here with us. You're letting this yelly Jew talk to you about how you're doing it all wrong and make all these jokes about people like Anne Frank and Chris Angel who are on different levels. But the fact that you're here really means that you love your art and you want to create good art. So honestly, you're most of the way there. So break stuff, make art, express ideas, be original. Don't touch kids. Do not touch kids. Stop it. Be respectful to women too. And if you do all those things, you will be not that terrible. And that is the lecture. You also probably survived the coronavirus. I'm at Harrison Comedy on Twitter and Instagram. That's another shameless plug. I am now going to open the floor to questions. If you'd like me to talk about how these apply to virtual shows, as you just saw, I do have some slides about it. Happy to talk about that. But I'm happy to answer any question, whether it's about the lecture or not. It's about 8:15. I'll stick around till 8:30. Let's do like 15 minutes of questions. Thank you guys so much for being such a great audience. I very much appreciate it. We got Batman in the house still, and I love that. Billy, I love Billy. I don't know if I've met Billy Byron, but I love your hat. Grayson Smith is in front of a yellow. He's been going. Jimmy C. You know what? This doesn't really feel like a lecture unless Jimmy C mauls you while he puts on a microphone. I feel like I'm missing out on the full lecture experience. Nobody has gotten to put anything under my shirt. Anthony Darkstone's in the house. The Kings is in the house. That's his name. The first question to come in the chat was, do you really have a girlfriend? Yes, I do. She's in there. You'll never see her. You're going to have to trust me. Wait, I'm currently dating a girl from Nebraska, which is a fun sentence to say because different parts of it are surprising to each of you. Journey, you all just went. We're like, dating? What? A girl? No. Nebraska? Get the hell out of here.
Hey, Harrison, we have a
Yeah.
question from Kip Sherry.
Kip, I would love to hear your question.
Well, it's not actually a question. It was more sharing a story going on pain. In 2005, 2005, I just released a new magic trick called P-Pick Prediction Cards. I found myself at a convention and I entered the close-up competition of which Payne was a judge.
Yeah.
And I performed my illusion that I'd created, and I got a 0 for creativity from Payne. Later on, Payne was walking.
After his cataract surgery.
Later on, Payne was walking through the dealers section. He stopped over to Stephen's Magic Emporium. He saw the same magic trick I was doing. He goes, "Ah, that's where he got it from. He just bought it and went up and performed it minutes later." And then he read my name at the bottom of it. And you should have seen Payne fall all over himself trying to apologize.
Oh no, well, Payne is a great guy.
Oh, we've been great friends ever since. Great
I'll
friends
tell you
ever
what,
since.
That fits perfectly because we're getting close to Festivus, and that sounded like an airing of grievances. So that was great, Kip. I appreciate you sharing that. We also, by the way, somebody, let's see, Carl Jarbo said, Harrison, you are our 2020 Christmas card. Is that true? Do you have a sample? I will show you. I'm in my apartment, so I will show you. I will show you something for Christmas. I'll be right back. This is great. My girlfriend really is from Nebraska, and we're gonna have a Christmas tree for the first time. So since you mentioned Christmas, I will show you. I have a Christmas ornament of Donald Trump and Mike Pence working in the White House. And this is a Hanukkah house. You guys see a Hanukkah house? It's like a gingerbread house, but you charge rent. I once made one for my girlfriend's family. It was so cute. We put the icing on it, and you put a little menorah. She's like, "Where are the gingerbread people?" I was like, "They're in the attic." Shh. It's okay. I can make these jokes. My grandmother was in the Holocaust, and I said, "Is it okay if I make jokes about it?" And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "Thank you." Alrighty, let's go to the questions. Who has questions?
Willie Yee has the next one. Willie Yee.
Willie Yee, let's do it. Also love your hat. Willie Yee, I think.
Okay, yes. I would like to hear about about Zoom shows because that's what we're stuck with for now. And for
Great, I'm glad you brought it up. I have slides for it. Debbie, also I want to acknowledge Debbie Leifer is in the house. She said, please talk about virtual shows. Absolutely. So here is my very quick spiel on virtual shows. Let's go into the PowerPoint. Here's the thing. If you are bad at magic, putting it on Zoom is not going to make you better. Doing a magic show on Zoom only makes it worse. It's like if you took it's the difference between taking a poop and taking a poop and then taking a photograph of that poop and sending it to your friends. It's still shit, but now your friends get to wonder why you're broadcasting it to the internet. So here are the quick rules for when you're doing a virtual show. Things that you need to know about this virtual medium that we now find ourselves in. So, virtual audiences have a shorter attention span than real life audiences because you're competing with the goddamn internet. Previously, you were in a dark room and they were kind of captive because if they wanted to leave your show, they had to stand up and squeeze by the rest of the audience members. It was very awkward. Now they had to click once and they have the whole internet. Do you know how hard it is to keep people focused when they could click one button and see like a cat with shoes? Have you seen a cat with shoes? They're very entertaining. Dogs with shoes, even better. Love a good dog with shoe video. So you have to be aware of that. And so you need to build your show where it's got to move quick enough and be interesting enough that you're constantly engaging the audience and constantly keeping them focused, because now they're watching through a screen. All right, so virtual magic is like TV. That's a good thing too. It is a television medium. I have a background actually in television production. I worked for Disney and ABC and Comedy Central. Even this stuff right now, like I'm using foot pedals, which keeps my hands free, so I can actually switch between different angles with my feet. And the reason I have that capability is so that during my live show, I use the pedals to cut between different cameras. So I can actually cut, there's another camera up here. None of these are actually, there we go. Here's another camera. Hello. The reason I have multiple cameras and switchers is I like to think of my Zoom show like a TV show. So if in a TV show, I would cut to another angle, then I need to do it. Here's a really good example of thinking like a television show. I saw somebody do the sock prediction trick. You guys all know that trick where you hold up like a bunch of socks and then you kind of magicians force your way to one pair of socks. And then you go, oh, look, I'm wearing that pair of socks. I knew it the whole time. If you're doing it on Zoom and they can't see your feet the whole time, then there's no reason to magicians force the socks. You can just put on the correct pair of socks and then show them because they can't see your goddamn feet. People are intelligent. They know that things can happen outside of the boundary of your webcam. Now, that's not to say, by the way, that you can't take advantage of that fact. You absolutely should, but you need to start with an acknowledgement that they know you can cheat. So that's all part of thinking like a television producer. So if I'm going to have a prediction, it needs to be in my space. Let me go to a full view. It would need to be, for example, in this area, and I need to make sure that it never cuts away. So if this is where my prediction was, I would have it probably elevated, and I would try to never go here, because at this point, I could have a secret assistant on the ground switching out my prediction. So that's not what I'm doing. I need to be aware of that. That's why Copperfield and old magic specials will say, this camera will never cut away. It's why you can use inset shots and have a second camera trained on it so that they have an element of trust. Doesn't mean you can't cheat, but you just need to be aware that they know that. So there's, and then you have to go a step beyond television because it's not television. Why are they watching you on Zoom? And probably, by the way, with a worse quality than a Netflix special would have. Why are they watching you on Zoom and not a magician on Netflix? It's because you can talk to them. You can see them. It is probably live, or you can fake it and make it feel live, but you need to justify why you're not just television. And that's really exciting. It's so cool to talk to people. I always have a gallery view up so that I can talk to people. I'll incorporate them into the show. If you're not incorporating people into your show and their real-time feedback, whether that's listening to their laughter or watching the chat, you're not taking advantage of this new medium. And that, again, this is repeating what I just said, which is there are new methods that you can do that haven't existed before, because you could take advantage. You can freeze parts of the screen. You can have things off camera if you're clever about it. But also you need to acknowledge that your audience knows it. So those are the sort of three things that you need to keep in mind. You're competing with the internet. It's like TV, but not TV. It's a new medium, which means you can come up with new methods. It's also a new medium, so the audience is aware that you can come up with new methods. So that is the virtual magic spiel. Let's go back to webcam mode. There we go. And we have time for, I think, about 2 or 3 more questions. Let's rapid fire it. You can put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand. Any last questions? And somebody asked what software I'm using to switch back and forth. This is Ecamm, which runs on a Mac. It's pretty great. And also at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of the hardware that lets you sort of bring your other cameras into your computer were very hard and expensive to get. It's a lot cheaper to do that now. So even if you have a camcorder, or you can use your cell phone even, it's always nice to have that multiple angle. And somebody said, is Ecamm better than OBS? Depends on your level of technological expertise and if you have a Mac or a PC. Ecamm is great. It's easy. It's easier than OBS. OBS is more full featured. It's also available on a PC. Let's see, any other questions? Dorothy, yes. Hi, Dorothy, what is your question? I can see if you, I'm gonna send you an unmute request. You just have to click unmute. There you go. Yeah, you should be getting a little request window. There you go. Perfect.
So have a switch. How are you be able to use all these cameras?
You can switch in software by clicking on different, in eCam, it's different scenes. Or I have foot pedals. They sell devices called Stream Deck. You can even download an app for your phone that is that allows you to do Stream Deck on your phone. You can buy a physical Stream Deck which has buttons on it. Basically, any way you can put input into your computer. I have this remote for my slides, but it can also switch eCam scenes. So if this is just off camera, I can be switching my cameras as well. It's up to your personal preference.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And any final questions?
There's one I saw in there posted. Do you consider yourself more of a magician or a comedian, or is it a good mix of both?
Oh yeah, Hank just said that, and Berto said that too. Are you mainly a comedian or magician? How do you know comedy versus magic? More comedy versus magic? It's a good point. For the longest time, and I think I still do, I always say the difference between me and another comedy magician is that they are a magician who does comedy, and I'm a comedian who does magic. When I am presenting my act, jokes and laughter are the driving force. When I'm coming up with those ideas, we talked earlier in the lecture about having original ideas. Those ideas are all based on what is the funniest thing that I can think of. What would be hilarious to do in my show? And because that's what's driving it, that would make comedy first, magic second. Even though magic is the first thing, is my first love. It's the thing that I started doing when I was a kid. It's the thing that I love so much. Most of my best friends are magicians. I love magic and magicians. And the reason I do this lecture is because when I started doing a lot of stand-up comedy, a very quick story, I was stuffing sponge balls in my back pocket, and a comedian saw me and said, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, in case the jokes don't work, I'm going to close with a magic trick so that I know that I have a big closer." And he said, "You'll never learn comedy if you have a safety net." And so for years, I kept them very separate. I only did straight stand-up. And then when I did magic, I did magic. And because I was doing the straight comedy, or as straight as I can do it, I started to realize that the creative process of comedy was more in line with what an artist would do. And I became frustrated that magic wasn't created that way, that people just bought stuff and then did what they bought. And so this lecture is actually me trying to bring magic to a place where I can love it as much as I think as it should be loved. There's a quote, I think it's a Eugene Berger quote, that magic is wonderful, but magicians are bad. Something along those lines. And that's the idea. This lecture is supposed to bring them up to, magic is beautiful and wonderful. So this lecture is about bringing magicians up to that level of wonderfulness. So that's where I fall on that divide. But anytime I'm doing a lot of comedy, I cannot wait to do magic. Anytime I'm doing a lot of magic, I can't wait to do comedy. And so it's a grass is always greener situation in which I'm always sad, which is a great place to be for comedy. Kip, I'm gonna get you in a second because there's a couple of questions in the chat. Somebody said, can you sing and dance? I did a lot of musical theater. Do you do politics? Do you do politicals and topical humor, or more real life? Both. Again, I think magic, any art, should reflect your point of view. It is weird to me that there are tons of political comedians, and I don't think any political magicians. And so yeah, there's politics in my magic. And part of that is just because that's how I feel. We have your favorite retorts for hecklers. That is a really good, a good way of phrasing that question, because I don't think anybody should have a canned retort to a heckler. I try to write my own responses to hecklers, and those take a really long time to build up. But the best way to deal with a heckler is at first realize that most hecklers are not trying to screw you up or screw you over. Most people just don't know better. So the first time I get heckled, I just try to gently remind them that this is not appropriate behavior. And then if they continue to heckle, I will take them down and ruin their life. I make it very clear that that's what I'm going to do, because I'm a goddamn professional. I'm Major League Baseball. You are barely Little League, and you're drinking. I will take you down in front of your family. So part of it too is, by the way, is making sure the audience is so on your side that when somebody does heckle you, they can feel that energy, that they're on the wrong side of it. But yeah, it's getting to a point too where you have in your head, like one of my favorite responses to a heckler, and this is a line that I wrote that fits my character, is to be like, oh my God, it's so cute. You think I care what you have to say. It really communicates the message that they're not behaving appropriately and that I feel that way. That would be like a slightly elevated response. And then I could keep going and really, and the other thing that you want to know is to ask questions of your heckler. Ask them questions, because the more they answer questions, the more ammunition you will have and the easier it will be to take them down, because eventually they are going to screw up. And that's when you pounce and you rip them apart, because you're used to being on stage. They're not. They will eventually be their own undoing. That's a piece of advice my friend Joe Larson gave me when I was starting out. And it's a great piece of advice for hecklers. So that's another reason you don't need sort of a pat response, because you're going to just keep asking them questions until they stumble. And also know if your heckler is seeking attention or not. If their whole goal is to get attention, then asking them a lot of questions or focusing a lot on them is not very helpful. They're getting what they want. Those are rare, but know if that's what their goal is, and then don't give them that kind of attention. Cool. Most jokes focus at what age groups? Whatever age group you want. Kip, do you have a question, or is it another story about pain?
Yes. Yeah, no, this time it's a question.
Either way, I'm happy.
No, I noticed in your lecture tonight you were talking about taking a joke and trimming it up, and this all sounds like a bunch of writing. You're writing it down, you're crossing things out, you're adding things in, which makes it very scripted. And then there's also the form of comedy called improv. I take it your preference is scripting, but speak maybe a little about the difference between a scripted comedy act, stand-up, if you will, versus an improv, and incorporating that into magic.
That's an amazing question. So a couple of thoughts. First thing, I remember I was a very baby comic. I got to meet Lewis Black. A friend of a friend knew him and was like, oh, he loves to meet new comics. And he said, what are you up to, Harrison? And at that point, the most impressive thing I thought on my resume was that I was the captain of the Gotham Comedy Club improv team. And he looked horrified. And he said, you do improv? I thought you were a comedian. I said, no, I'm a comedian. And he goes, oh, the reason I'm a stand-up comedian is because I care enough about my audience to have practiced first. And it's an interesting point, right? If I go on stage with jokes that I've run through that algorithm over and over and over again, they're probably going to hit. And it means that an audience who's paying for a ticket to see me is going to see a product that I can be very confident is going to make them laugh. So there is this sort of sharks and jets, West Side Story thing between comedians and improv. Improv is also really, if you're a performer on stage, is really more about having a Rolodex of ideas. If I come up with something really in the moment and it worked, I'm going to memorize that. So if the situation arises again, I already know what my line is. I already know what I'm going to do. And over time, the more times I encounter weird stuff, the more I already have lines ready to go for almost any situation. It doesn't mean I'm not coming up with new lines or adding to this Rolodex. But often a line that feels like improv is actually sort of based on me having encountered that experience before. The sort of metaphor to use, another metaphor about improv is by memorizing your map, which is knowing your script, you're able to go off-road whenever you want. If you go off-road, but you don't know where you're coming back to, you're screwed. You need to know what the map is, that when you go off-road, you can steer the thing back onto the road and get to your destination. So the more I know my script is actually the more I'm able to riff and improvise, because I know I have someplace to land. So that's sort of how improv is not improv. And when it comes to scripting, there's two ways. You can either just write it down, which is very good, or you can kind of do what most comedians do, which is you go on stage so much and you repeat the joke so much that you're actually slowly memorizing the script. You get to a point where you say the joke the exact same way every time. It's a harder, longer process. I tend to work jokes out on stage until it gets to a point that I'm saying it relatively consistently, and then I'm going to go on and type it out and attack it. If a joke is really complex, I might have to write it out earlier. It's a joke might have a lot of moving parts, and I want to make sure I'm going to visually be able to move them around. So you do want to have a script, but you don't want to ever be scripted. You don't want to ever sound scripted. Another piece of advice that people will throw out, memorize your punchlines. How you say the last part of your joke is vitally important. Those should probably be memorized, but sometimes you can be a little bit looser with the premise because the premise just sets up the punchline. It's the punchline that really creates that mental explosion. So if you're going to script something, script the punchline. Have an outline. Go on stage with a set list. I will go on stage every time. I don't have one right near me at the moment, but I have a set list that says every magic trick I'm going to do and kind of every joke that I'm going to do before, within, after. Doesn't mean I'm going to follow it because knowing the map just means I can go off road, but at least I've gone on stage with a plan. And that's the idea. Go on stage with a plan and be okay with throwing that plan out.
So if I tell jokes about my wife, am I considered a creeper?
It depends what the jokes are. Absolutely, you could tell jokes about your wife. Just make sure that it's true, it's new, and it's you. And based on the fact, and your wife neither exists, is not yours, and I've heard of this before. Maybe not.
Thank you.
No problem. Well, I think I think that's a pretty good button on it. I'll stick around in this chat a little bit more. And again, let me put up my Twitter and all that stuff. If you want to email me, I'm going to put that in the chat right now. If you have any questions, here's my email. It's harrisongreenbaum@gmail.com. I just put it in the chat. And here's my Twitter and Instagram as well. Feel free to message me. I am happy to answer any and all questions. Also, secret, I can't tell you many details, but You Are All Terrible, the book, will be coming out. And it is exciting because it contains more penis references than any magic book in history. I've set records, people. There's not one, but 2 references to JonBenet Ramsey. It's not even timely, but they're in the book. It also has very confusing diagrams that have nothing to do with the book, but will confuse your friends if they try to riffle through it. So there's a lot of really fun things. There's even a centerfold of me.
I hope it's not like the Burt Reynolds centerfold.
Oh, it's going to be better than the Burt Reynolds.
Oh, God.
Am I laying on a tiger skin rug? Perhaps.
Is Carol Baskin with you?
That's right. Exactly. So you guys can check that out. That will be coming out. But make sure if you have any questions, just email me or hit me up on Twitter or Instagram. I do my show, Who Books That, every Wednesday at 7 p.m. That's whobooks.that.com. I can put that in as well. But thank you guys so much. This has been an honor and a privilege and a pleasure. Have a great rest of your weekend and pandemic. And I cannot wait to see you via Zoom and in person, everybody. Mwah.
Thank you so much, Harrison. I mean, this was absolutely phenomenal. I'm just blown away. Every magician should listen and heed the words you've got to say. So thank you so much. Really.
So much. Really appreciate it.
Oh, well, everybody stick around because we're going to be opening up to everybody and just schmooze and mingle
And by
here.
the way,
So
you know that magicians are just like Batman, right?
Why?
They use gadgets to substitute for superpowers. Everybody thinks they're sleeping with their younger assistants, and their biggest rival is a clown. Hero than Batman.
Hey, Joe, I'm going to stream. Okay, sir?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Could I just say a couple of sentences? Would that be all right?